Tricia, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So what was it like to compete in the Montreal Olympics back in 1976?
Oh gosh, that was a long time ago, and but it was such a thrill. I was pretty young, and it was my first Olympics, and to compete in the Olympics at home, to march into the Olympic ceremonies in front of a home crowd, it was. I think my eyes never were just extremely wide. Yeah. Everywhere I looked, it was something that I'd never seen before.
How old were you?
I was just 19, just turned 19.
But also, it was the first time that women rowers had ever been in the Olympics. What was that like?
Well, it because it sort of happened in a very gradual way. I wasn't really thinking about it. I'd been a rower. We were rowing, and then when we heard, wow, they're going to have women in the Olympics, it was just, well, of course they should have women in the Olympics. So, and what a great opportunity. So yeah, it was. But I don't think we really caught the historical significance of it, and even really questioned it. Why was it that it took 80 years for women to be admitted into the games, and what was that all about? So we learned a lot about that later.
Yeah, you were just busy living it.
Exactly.
Are there any memories that really stand out for you? I mean, that I love thinking about you coming into the stadium. That must have been incredible. Anything else that really stands out?
I mean, that was amazing because we actually got to walk from the athletes' village to the stadium. So we weren't even getting off of buses or anything. So, and it was through the park there along that pathway, and there were people all along the pathway with little Canadian flags cheering us on. We had a drill sergeant trying to get us to march in rows, and we looked pretty good actually. When I've seen pictures since, it didn't feel that way when we were marching, because honestly, I was looking across the row and like, what is wrong with these people? Left, right. Probably I was doing it wrong, but the athletes are so specialized for their sport. I always say we're not actually trained to walk. We do our sport. But as we came to the stadium, you could hear this boom, boom of the music inside, and we went under the stadium seats where it's fairly dark, and as the tip of the Canadian flag caught the light, there was this roar, and it just continued for entire march. So for sure, that was a highlight.
I have goosebumps, by the way. That was amazing description. I feel like I was there.
It was incredible. And then watching my little sister, she was 14, win an Olympic medal. Of course, we didn't get to actually go to the event. We were watching in the athletes' lounge, a little TV, but that was obviously a huge thrill. Just being there with her, I was so proud of her. And she was we all were competing against the Eastern Bloc countries, and the Eastern Bloc swimmers, East German swimmers, were particularly notable, and years later, all the records came out that they were doping. But aside from that again, learned that later. Seeing my little sister win an Olympic medal was, I think she got tired of me bragging about her.
Remind me her name.
Shannon Smith. Yeah, she was 14. Smith. Yeah.
Wow, 14, and against all that, the powerhouses, as you mentioned, and also your mother was chef de mission.
She was assistant chef de mission, actually. Mm-hmm. She had been, as both my parents and a lot of parents in Canada, volunteering in sport. And so she ended up in Munich, first of all, being the chaperone for the swim team, because swimmers were really young those days. And then Montreal, she was chosen to be assistant chef de mission. So she was, and I didn't even realize this either till later, because being a teenager, you're not hanging out with your mom. That there she was in the front of the team as we were coming into the opening ceremony. So, she'd been a basketball player. Again, women's basketball was not in the games when she was competing. She was on the Canadian team. She went to Pan American Games, but so this was her Olympics as well. And so, that's a pretty amazing thing to have all three of us, not together because, we're at different stages of our life, but to look back and imagine that experience that we all had together.
It's extraordinary. It actually is hilarious that you didn't even realize your mom was at the front. That says a lot about
hang out with my mom.
Yeah, being 19, I guess. But still, so, and now you are, president of the Canadian Olympic Committee. You obviously have spent, I'm guessing, a lifetime in sports. Why are the Olympics so important to you, and I guess your family too?
We always loved the Olympics as kids. We were, if it's sunny, go outside, but when the Olympics were on, we were actually allowed to watch TV.
Yes, I know. Same.
Which we enjoyed, and it's the only time I remember my mom sitting down, really, because 5 kids and all of that. But I got so much out of sport, and I see how kids get so much out of sport. I really believe in the value of sport. To the individual, but also to a community, to a country, brings the world together. Mm-hmm. Nelson Mandela said there's a language kids all understand, and all kids understand, rather. And so because I had such a positive experience, I really want others to have the same thing and to have the same kind of opportunities that I had. I mean, got my education through sport. I've seen the world through sport, and I think become the person I am through the lessons I've learned through sport. And so I think it's a really important part of who we are as Canadians. And so I want to make sure that I do my part in ensuring that continues.
And so what does that mean? I mean, here in Montreal, I know that we're hosting the Olympic qualifiers in 2 years. What does that mean in terms of a city like Montreal that's hosted the games? Is the Canadian Olympic Committee wanting to bring the games back to Montreal, for example?
Oh, definitely. I would. Canada's such a great job hosting, and the Olympics has changed a lot so that it's really about adapting to the city as opposed to the city having to reconfigure itself completely in order to host a game. So, which is really positive. But I've just seen Montreal's done an amazing job in hosting world championships. We've got the UCI, the cycling world's coming in the fall. We've got, tennis is next weekend, so on and on. But I've seen the power of hosting at home, not only how it invigorates the community, we've just seen it through with the football and going across Canada. But I remember seeing Becky Scott at home in Canmore and her cross-country ski club and all these little kids. And they're watching a World Cup on their ski hill with the world's best cross-country skiers on their ski hill. And you can just see this little bubble forming over their head. Like, I do that every day. And so it creates these dreams. If you can see it, you can imagine, and so I think it's really important to host. That's all part of Canada being a sporting nation.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the actual hosting is another whole conversation we probably don't have time for, but I take your point. In fact, I went to a similar event this winter for Michael Kingsbury, which was amazing. And they had a whole, it was at Mont-Saint-Sauveur, which is where he trains. And they had a whole bunch of, former Olympians. It was very inspirational. And then, of course, they had the dual slaloms, and all the young kids doing it, which was incredible. But just because I'm going to have to end things up with you, but for the 50th celebrations, what are you most looking forward to? Because I understand there is a rowing event.
There is. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again. There's some of because we're from all over Canada, our rowing team. It's not just a rowing reunion, of course, and there's people coming from different countries and so on, but I know a lot of rowers are coming from Canada and the U.S. and Europe. And it's just to see all the old friends again, because it was sort of... it's a family, and I think not just the rowing family is a family, but the sport community is a family. And so it's just going to be a great big family reunion, I think.
Are you going to row?
I think I might. I'm going to bring my stuff. There's so much going on. You're sort of running from one thing to the other, but I'm going to bring my gear so that I don't want to have that as an excuse to not row.
I have to say, there's been so much criticism about some of the infrastructure, notably the Big O, which again, we don't have time to talk about, you and I. But that Olympic Basin seems to have been a success and is still used all the time. Oh,
it's fantastic. And plus, the 7 other venues built for the games, the 7 including the Oval, they're all still in use. And then the existing venues, they had the 15 of them that they just renovated. The 14 of them are still in use. So, the legacy is the sporting legacy that's been built on those facilities. It was a very wise investment overall. Yeah, I just thank Montreal for the foresight and for dreaming big and showing the world what Canada can do.
We'll end on that positive note. Tricia, thanks so much. Really great talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hello, Canada.
This is Bryan Adams Radio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll. One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all.
Bryan Adams Radio.
I'm coming back to you.
Now available on the free iHeartRadio app.